Welcome to the Zinnov Podcast. You're listening to our Business Resilience series, where we bring to you conversations between eminent industry stalwarts and thought leaders from across the globe as they discuss their insights on overcoming challenges and the mindset that help them navigate the journey of crisis, resilience, and growth.
Welcome back to our Business Resilience series, Zinnov Podcast. I'm your host, CEO of Zinnov, Pari Natarajan. Zinnov is a management consulting firm. We help organizations build and transform their global technology hubs, as well as work with tech and tech services companies in helping them with the growth strategies, both organic as well as inorganic. I'm very excited to have two really interesting speakers today from Flexera, a leader in software optimization and management. And we have Shannon, the CTO of Flexera, as Niladri Ray, VP of Engineering and Country Head of India at Flexera. Brian and Niladri, great having you here. Both of you have excellent experience in building software, building global software, agile transformation, global quality engineering, and both of you are prominent leaders of innovation as well as customer experience. It's super exciting to have you here.
Thanks, Pari.
Thank you, Pari.
And if you look at what's happening today, there is an acceleration in technology adoption among companies, right? If you talk to any CIO, any CEO, CIOs are in the back room, 10 years ago. Today, they're called into the boardroom. Hey, what is happening in AI? What's happening in blockchain? All of the new technology areas. And one of the things Flexera has is you have a bird's eye view on what is happening in enterprise, be it in pharmaceutical company, in a bank, in a technology company. So what are some of these technology trends which is driving and just helping your customers, try to transform?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things I've been seeing recently is that in the last 5 years, when you'd ask a CIO what his CEO wants him or her to do, they would say cloud first, always cloud. Let's go to the cloud. And recent times have told us that you want to maybe optimize, whether you are in a public cloud or you're hosting your own, services. And so we're hearing more and more about that from our customers that, they're being asked to really evaluate, is the cloud the right solution, or should we now be rationalizing back into maybe our own data centers or some other services like that.
So that's a big change in how they're thinking about.
That's right.
And during COVID, we saw that customers moving into cloud quite rapidly, right? Everyone starting to, and then you saw the consumption numbers go up. And one of the hyperscalers even come out and said that they have $50 billion of order book waiting to be consumed. And then suddenly CIOs got surprised. I didn't realize it's going to cost so much to be able to drive it. How do you help them in these scenarios?
Yeah, so when we look at the market, about 53% of spend out there is now with the cloud, and about 47% is with on-prem. And when we look at especially our large customers, the division around what they actually spend is about that. And so what we do is we help them understand what we call a hybrid estate. So we help them understand, what are you spending in the cloud? What are you spending in your on-prem environments? What are you spending with software licensing and hardware licensing? And then we help them to optimize so that they can then solve the problem I was talking about earlier, where they're trying to rationalize back into what makes sense really, and not say cloud just for cloud's sake.
Got it. And to be able to help these are different environments, right? And these are, again, global enterprises, have a lot of complexity in the IT environment. What are the kind of innovation you are driving in your engineering and R&D organization, which helps you, keep up with what's happening in your customer environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as a lot of companies are talking about today, especially software companies, we're talking about how they are a data company. And as I joined Flexera about 2.5 years ago, and when I got in, I really started to recognize that was true for Flexera. And so if you're familiar with technologies like Databricks. That is where a lot of, industry software companies are going as they realize that, because what it does is it then allows you to start to pull together data from other adjacent markets or adjacent, metadata that might be coming in, and then solve additional customer use cases. And platforms like Databricks help you do that like very, very easily, and then you can create powerful solutions for your customers. And so that's kind of where we're driving forward for our customers, because when we ask them, what do you do with our data? Well, oftentimes they will actually pull our data and then add it to their own data lakes. So we want to provide that same sort of functionality within our Flexera One platform.
And Niladri, Brian talked about some of the innovation you're running around building these platform data lakes. And you're running one of the larger technology hubs for the company. Like how do you drive innovation from the technology hub? Tell us a little bit about how you build this up.
Yeah, so on the innovation part, I think it's first important to understand the organization's context and what they do. So the areas that Brian spoke about, we happen to be in the top half of the Magic Quadrant for Gartner for IT asset management. And for Forrester for cloud optimization, we're again on the top half. And why I'm saying this is because this organization has got a very proud legacy of what they have built for all the several customers we have across all the various segments. So on the innovation piece, and I've been in this company for a year and a half right now, we've been very blessed because a lot of the founding members, the people who actually wrote the code, who understand the customers from a geo perspective, sit across the entire world. So we've got some fantastic architects and leaders sitting in Australia. You've got, and thanks to COVID now, you've got a full distributed workforce of SMEs globally. We've got this in the UK, we've got it in the West Coast and the East Coast. So the India teams, and from a innovation perspective, you always have this piece about the experts who are facing the market have problems that they want to get solved, and the innovation and then the places where you actually have the talent supply and you have the entrepreneurship spirit, places like India, they want to solve problems. So innovation is about how do you bring that network together, and I think we've been in limited time been very successful in being able to bring together the experts across all the various geos, across the silos, and tap into the talent pools we have across the company to run innovation experiments across. So, all the areas we're talking about on convergence, in terms of, the FinOps and the ITAM side, for example, some experiments have already been run. We ran a major hackathon across the company globally from India recently. It was the largest we had, and we had some fantastic experiments that allowed people to work across the silos. You are an expert from Australia, with somebody from the UK, and an engineer from India, and solution sales from the US, powered through solutions that we now know are viable for a go-to-market. So we've done some very good stuff in bringing it together, and a lot more to be done.
Interesting. I think you've been able to follow a very integrated model of leveraging talent from across, and that is allowing the engineers to drive innovation. And one of the challenges when you have global tech hubs is they don't have access to customers, right? Your customers all over the world, engineering team is 5,000 miles, 10,000 miles away from customers. How are you able to solve the customer access problem when you're driving innovation?
So we've been a bit blessed because, across the house for the buyer side, the supplier side of the business, we actually have pockets where we have deep product expertise even in India. In fact, people who are doing product strategy, working directly with customers, we've got some great case studies as part of that. But the company also has a very strong culture of people helping each other. So we've got product owners that bridge between the technology functions and the business functions, who act as the translators in terms of being able to, on an agile perspective, give immediate context about are we really adding value to the customer context. And not just for one customer, for several customers, because some of our use cases do cut over. So we've been able to leverage what we already have, bring an external talent now that is able to mesh very nicely with the current ones, and empower this.
And Brian, coming back to you, going back to your customer problems, right? And the spend is starting to go up, like tech spend. And Gartner says 4 trillion IT spend. That number will continue to go up. And some of the CIOs we speak to, they feel that they're lacking control on their spend. Before, they had everything in the data center, they can figure it out. Right now, the CEOs are coming and saying, hey, I want you to train the LLM models on our own data, right? And suddenly they go and ask, and the bill comes with $20 million for training the data because you need so much of service and so on. So it seemed like they were worried that they're lacking some control, right? How are you helping your customers in taking back control on the spend?
That's a great question. Just happened to do a keynote recently about taking back control of your hybrid IT estate. We absolutely help our customers do that. One of the things that, so we talk about how we help our customers manage cost and risk. Those are kind of the two. Cost is somewhat straightforward, like you talked about, out of control IT spend. I get asked by my CFO to keep that under control, and I have my own programs that I use to do that. But the other side is also risk. When you talk about software vulnerabilities, how do you manage that risk as it comes into your estate? Make sure that you're protected. Talk about audits, either coming from vendors or regulatory environments, and we help our customers kind of build out reports or information that they need in order to push back or satisfy any of those risk factors. So that's how we help them to take that control, because with the Flexera product, you can see your entire IT estate. We have some of the best discovery technology in the world, where you can really hone in on what is actually out there and how it's contributing to that cost or risk, and then you can actually manage it effectively.
Interesting. You also touched upon security, right? And tell us a little bit about how you help, because cybersecurity is another biggest concern and then they really don't know, like, is it certain product they have, is it vulnerable or not? How is Flexera helping in that?
Yeah, so we have a couple products around security. We have our software vulnerability management product and our software vulnerability response product, SVM and SVR. And what they apply both to hardware and software, primarily software though in the world today. And they're really able to very precisely get down to, a build has this particular CVE in it, and hey, maybe you should go resolve that. In fact, we have a great example when I believe it was a Log4j issue was going on a couple of years ago. Yeah. I was actually sitting in a customer advisory board, and one of the customers got pinged on it while we were in there. And within 10 minutes, he could figure out where the areas of risk were in his business, and could send his team off to go and either remediate or not, depending on the finding. But within 10 minutes, we found out within a very large estate where those vulnerabilities exist, and they could go and take care of them.
Interesting. And coming back to you, Niladri, it looks like there is a whole lot of innovation you need to drive, right? Because customer environment is changing, adoption is changing, hybrid cloud is going to get only complex. How are you driving productivity of your engineering team to keep up with this, right? There is GenAI tools coming up. Are you now adopting GenAI to improve productivity? How are you keeping up with all of this?
Yes, I'll come to that. I want to just add a bit to what Brian was saying on the customer context, because on our customers, we are also hearing about functions shifting around. We had a customer who talked about cybersecurity coming under SAM, and as a board metric, they have to report the number of publishers they actually have and what exactly goes behind the scenes. And Flexera is the golden copy for them to be able to do that. Another customer actually made this comment, and this is a leading exchange globally, is for every dollar we invest in the SAM function, we're giving $10 back to the business, because the unlimited visibility you get into the real estate, it's not just about the cloud or the non-cloud piece of it. So, you could be, AWS, Google Cloud, Alibaba, but there are also other areas that you take in terms of the software licenses, for example, and other information that you start putting it together. And then that's the inform piece. But what do you do next with that piece in terms of optimizing the real estate is where Flexera really, comes in to be able to allocate costs down to billing centers and then take actions in terms of usage and reduction. And why I'm saying all this is because this is a changing paradigm on the hybrid real estate. So on your GenAI question, I think Brian alluded to this. We've been observing this space very carefully. And I think we sit on the side where the cost of what you're doing in GenAI and the number of GPU cycles you were talking about training, we are not seeing commensurate ROI at this point in time. And how does this translate to real customer value? But what we are doing right now is we are looking at the full food chain from the developer productivity perspective in terms of an end-to-end GitHub integration with the visualization piece, and looking at what tooling is already out there to be able to get the best bang for the buck. So there are a lot of GitHub copilots out there which allows you to be able to power away developer productivity in terms of doing development. And then, on the data layer, we are, after a lot of evaluation, we are looking to go over Databricks. Databricks has a very powerful Databricks Lakehouse IQ product line, which allows you to converse with the data layer in very English language. And then if I add the visualization piece, and I'll just take one example for Power BI, which we are trying to do as a simple visualization, they've got a Power BI copilot as well. So right now where we are at is how do we put these pieces of the puzzle to make the developer be able to optimize its deliverables right up to the food chain and do a show and tell where we have the customer on the customer proxy validate what we are doing. And we're making some very good inroads as part of that. And that's the way we are going to look to approach this.
Okay. So refactoring of the code is also easier with GenAI, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Coming back to Brian, we talked about the different customer scenarios. Give us an ideal case study of a customer who's leveraging Flexera to the maximum. What are the outcomes are you able to deliver?
So we believe that we have saved our customers. I'll get to a specific example, but we believe over the years we've saved our customers tens of billions of dollars, tens of billions.
Okay.
And in that, there's two categories. Obviously, there's the actual savings, like bottom line savings of you had a service, you bought it, optimized it. Yeah. But then there's preventing costs as well. And so one particular example of a company, we have helped them to save about $500 million over the last few years or so in both the preventative and actual bottom line costs. Okay. And so it's very meaningful, very, very meaningful dollars that can come right back, that can help you then fund other values that you'd like to bring to the organization.
Yeah, and what we see is talent across the world want to work on deeper technology, core technology. I think you seem to provide that opportunity for talent to work on some of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, from we say full stack engineers, right? And then, there are a lot of other dimensions. People want to work on microservices and cloud. We have all of it. And that's never going to be and people love it for us. But I think the important thing is what do you do with that? And how do you produce value very quickly? And the discipline we kind of have behind it, that's the next factor in terms of the overall thing. Like building this platform. I'm not too sure of, like in AI, for example, the AI is as good as the data. And we've been very, very focused on ensuring that the data pipelines, the normalization, ensuring clean data is our priority. And then you can do all the experiments around it, but please first focus on the data first.
The data engineering part.
The data engineering part becomes extremely key. And the data engineering part, I keep saying, data engineering from a context of, from source to target and ensuring the full lineage of the whole flow. The engineer sees that as one of the DNAs of how we want to operate. The technology becomes an enabler in how we kind of make that happen.
Got it. And Brian, what is your philosophy of global delivery? And as the future is all engineers are spread across the world, right? And what's your philosophy? Your teams here in the US, your teams in Australia, your teams in India. How do you enable them? What's the foundational principles you believe in? So
I'll maybe answer in two ways. So the first, I'll add a little bit to what Niladri talked about of why it's great to work here. The culture I want to create in the engineering organization is what I like to call virtuous cycles. And what that means is that I want to be pushing autonomy and decision-making and empowering down all the way to an intern, from VPs to interns. And what I mean by virtuous cycles, it's where someone has the autonomy and decision-making power in their world to be better, to always be better and to get better. So whether that's an intern or whether that's a sprint team or whether that's a VP, you're always empowered to be able to get better. And to me, I know when I was coding, regularly, that was the environment that I just loved. And so to me, that's the culture I want to create across the world, across the globe, so that everyone feels, autonomous, accountable to what they're going to be delivering and empowered to do that. And in terms of actually the global delivery, one of the keys is to make sure that each team within any location really feels ownership of something. So I think you talked maybe earlier about I actually don't know if it was, maybe we were talking before, but we want the team in India, we want the team in Australia, we want the team in the US, all of them to feel like they have true ownership of something, true ownership and true outcomes that they're driving towards, rather than feeling like order takers, or rather than feeling like the B team. Or to me, I want every single engineer here to feel like they are contributing to the greater good of the greater whole. Even if sometimes, you can't always work on, the data lake house or AI or these things, but I always want them to feel like whatever they're doing, they're progressing, and that they're feeling empowered to just kind of be the best engineer they can be.
If I may just add to that, Brian's themes are extremely powerful, and this kind of includes the CEO's themes. We had a theme of ruthless, predictable execution a year and a half back. This time we've got uncompromising excellence. And these are words, but these mean a lot in terms of what it packs in terms of what we expect people to do. And the sense of ownership comes when you kind of translate these into action.
Got it. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Niladri. It was great to have this conversation about technology, about what your customers are doing, more importantly about Flexera's culture in how you build great technology and the opportunities you provide for the talent, not just in the US, in India, but all over the world, like what the opportunity, equitable opportunity you're providing to your engineers. Thanks. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for joining this podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining the podcast. Till next time, stay safe and stay curious. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Business Resilience Series. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com. Follow us on Twitter @Zinnov for regular updates on our content. Thank you again for listening to the Business Resilience Series of the Zinnov Podcast.